All right, folks, we have reports of a possible beginning of a economic collapse. Now, what some people are saying, and I'll let you decide if you believe this is going to happen or not. I'll give you my thoughts towards the end of the video. Some people out there, a lot of people are out there saying that the car market, the used car market, especially with these loans that are out there, is going to be the set-off point, or it's going to be the beginning of the big financial collapse downturn that so many people have been waiting for, right? So I'll let you decide. Let's hear an individual giving his take on this situation, and then we'll talk about it on the other side, and I'll give you my take on it, of course, later in the video. And we've got a lot of other news to get caught up on later on in this video, so make sure you stay tuned to the end. Take a listen to this first.
Car market has collapsed. If you've been waiting to buy a car, this info is for you. Right now, we have the most repossessions we've ever seen in U.S. history. 1 in 5 loans do not get approved. The average American has $7,200 of negative equity, and the car dealerships are getting wrecked. So it was smart to be patient. If you've been wanting to upgrade to a new car, or if you need a secondary vehicle, there's 2 things you need to look out for here. See, dealers in 2021 and 2022, they were able to get away with these prices because they had good, low interest rates. We don't have that right now. However, if you're looking for a new vehicle, there are a lot of manufacturers that are offering 0% or up to 1.9%. That's a great deal if you can get that right now. If you're going with a used vehicle, which boy, those prices are disgusting. They have dropped so much. You can find good deals, but the interest rates are not that great. So here's what I would do. If you are a cash buyer, buy used all day long. The deals are out there. If you are a financer going for a used vehicle, be very selective and maybe wait up to 3 to 6 more months. But just know, the car market has collapsed and the deals are there.
I don't know. On one hand, he says the deals are there. It has collapsed. And then he says wait 3 to 6 months. So if it's collapsed, maybe he's thinking the downturn is going to be prolonged and prices are going to go even lower.
If you've been waiting to buy a car, this info is for you.
Just play this back real quick here.
If you're looking for a new vehicle, there are a lot of manufacturers that are offering 0% or up to 1.9%. That's a great deal if you can get that right now. If you're going with a used vehicle, which boy, those prices are disgusting. They have dropped.
Yeah, used vehicle prices have dropped quite a bit from the peak, but they're still way overpriced. We're still way above where we were prior to 2020. As far as a collapse goes, I don't see a collapse happening unless something big happens with the banks. Now, there's other people out there saying something is happening with the banks, and they've been saying that for years, but we're going to give you one of the latest predictions here in a couple of minutes. But first of all, give me your thoughts on the car market right now. I think prices are still way too high. If you look at a chart, let's bring one up real quick here. Well, we've got the Manheim Used Vehicle Index. And if you look right in the middle of the chart here, you see what happened to car prices in 2020. Anyone that lived through that, you know what happened. Prices got very expensive. I even remember stories of people buying a car and then 6 months to a year later, trading it back in for a profit, because instead of prices going down, prices went up so fast. Right here, if you can see my cursor, from 2020 to all the way almost to 2022, people were actually gaining equity on their vehicle, kind of like a home. When you buy a home, you gain equity. People were gaining equity on their vehicles. And I remember one story in particular. Somebody had bought an electric vehicle for like $30,000 and traded it back in for $38,000 like a year later. Insane stuff, right? But look what's happened. I mean, prices have come down some, but folks, this isn't cheap. We're still way above where we were prior to 2020. This chart goes all the way back to 2015, folks. We're nowhere near where we should be if things were to actually be affordable. Even before 2020, they weren't affordable. Everybody had to get loans. There's a few people that could buy a vehicle cash. Most of the top 10, 20% people, older people, but most people still had to rely on loans. So because of that, you could argue that cars have never been affordable. That's why so many people depend on getting loans. But now, especially, I mean, all you have to do is look at a chart like this. You can see prices haven't come down. They need to go down to prior to pre-2020 levels and even lower, in my opinion. I mean, even before 2020, I thought prices were too high. And I have 2 cars that are paid off, and I'm planning on driving them until I no longer can drive them. because I still think prices are way too high. If one of the cars breaks down and the repairs cost more than the vehicle's worth, then obviously I'll go out and buy another vehicle. But until then, I still think vehicles are way overpriced. I mean, let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, what do you think about the guy that we just played the clip from there? He says people aren't paying their loans.
You can find,
and he says it's on the verge of collapse. He says wait 3 to 6 months because the collapse will probably go even deeper. So is he right? I mean, we've heard these kind of alarms go off, people sounding the alarm, but nothing ever seems to collapse, right? Just seems like everything's propped up. The bubbles are getting bigger. They may deflate some, but nothing as far as a collapse or prices crashing, that's for sure. All right, now we got another one for you. He says the banking sector is about to collapse. Let's see what he's saying here.
The banking sector of the United States of America is about to collapse. There's no question in anybody's mind anymore that that is about to happen. Now, if you don't know that, it's not because it's not true. It's simply because nobody in the mainstream media is talking about it. All economists see it. Everybody in the banking system sees it. Everybody's scared shitless. They're just not talking about it. Here's what happened. Number one, a building in Midtown Manhattan that sold for $382 million in 2006 was just auctioned a few weeks ago for $8.2 million. You heard me correctly. $382 million, it was auctioned for $8.2 million. The reason for this is occupancy in major office buildings around the country has dropped tremendously. Everybody's working from home. It's more effective for companies, so why would they have commercial real estate they don't need? So they're not leasing these office buildings anymore. And these office buildings have literally, across the country, $20 trillion in debt. What happened was the cap rate on these buildings, when they were full, was about 4.5%, which is what you would expect. That's what you want as a landlord. It's perfect. Unfortunately, because of COVID, everybody went home. And then corporations realized, well, hell, just because I can't see them doesn't mean that they're not doing the same amount of work. Okay, great. Stay home. I'll just give you a tiny little raise so that you can buy some stuff at your house and do business from home.
All right, folks, we've been hearing warnings like that for a couple years now that office buildings are in severe distress, or banks rather, are in severe distress because of the vacancy rate in these office buildings. And they are selling some offices off for huge discounts. But as far as that collapsing the banking system, I think we would have seen it by now. But we have people out there saying, no, it's going to happen. It's still going to happen. I don't think they're going to let the banks collapse, folks. One thing that could bring on a kind of a panic sell-off kind of scenario would be something gets hacked or taken over. Like we just saw a big hack and outage, overseas. Let me take a look here. We just had a bunch of European airports get cyber attacked, and it brought things to a halt here. A cyber attack at the provider of check-in and boarding systems disrupted operations on Saturday at several major European airports, including London's Heathrow, the continent's busiest, causing flight delays and cancellations, folks. We'd have to see something like that, in my opinion, with the banks. But even if that happened, all they probably would do, in my opinion, is just freeze everybody's loans like they did in 2020, 2021. People for a period didn't have to pay their rent. Certain people got loan delays. There was even millions of people that had their power bills delayed and put off because of the shutdown in the economy with the health crisis and all that. I think the same thing would happen with the cyber attack. So I think the powers that be are really not going to try to let this economy drop and go down. And that means home prices could still remain high. I mean, if you see like a pin that's going to bust this bubble and bring prices down, please let me know down in comments. People for years had said that a war was going to break out and that was going to bring everything down, folks. It would have to be something major to bring this down. In fact, staying on the housing market for a minute, there's realtors out there making comedic videos making fun of people that are waiting for prices to collapse. Let me just bring this up real quick here. Let me play this. Look at this. Let me play it and then we'll tell you who it is here.
And over here, we have a buyer that's been waiting for the market to crash since 2020. waiting for the market to crash since 2020. Buyer that's been waiting for the market to crash since 2020. We have a buyer that's been waiting for the market to crash since 2020.
All right, so a real estate agent put that out. Let me just grab her screen name real quick here. Who is this? Find the account here. Brittany Realtor 225 put that out. Brittany Henderson is the name. And what she said is, don't be that guy. The time to buy is now, according to what she's saying. But prices have come down. If you guys watched my last video, you all saw that prices are down year over year in many major U.S. cities. If you didn't see that, you might want to go check that video out. There is something happening right now. We're at a turning point in the housing market. Nothing as far as a crash. Could it happen? Absolutely. But we would need to have one of those trigger events like I just spoke about a few minutes ago. But without that, it could be a kind of a prolonged downturn type of situation without some big event coming in and pulling the rug out from under the economy. You know what I mean? But what do you think about the realtors now making fun of people for not buying? Of course, realtors, that's their business. They're always going to be cheerleaders for the housing market. They're never going to, they'll never even admit that prices even came down a little bit. But if you look at some cities, prices are down year over year. But again, that's their business. They're not going to really come out and admit it. And they're going to have some fun and try to get some FOMO people that are waiting on the sidelines. They're going to try to get these people into buying a home right now so they can get some commissions. All right, got another one for you. Take a listen to this.
2025 is about to be the worst year that we probably have to live through in our lifetime, and I'm going to show you why. This chart right here is extremely scary, and I'm going to break it down to you guys in the simplest form that I can, okay? This here is a 3-month, 10-year yield, all right? In 2022, we dipped into the negative. We have been in the negative since then, and just recently on December.
Also, let's talk about inflation and high cost of living, high food prices in particular. New York Times put this out, and what they're saying is hamburger helper sales rise as Americans stretch their food dollars. Now, I didn't know what hamburger helper was. I've heard of it, but I've never used it. What it is, it's basically rice and some other things, dried pasta, and some seasoning and sauce mix that you mix in with the hamburger to make it a bigger meal. I mean, you could argue that that's a sign that households are stressed, but the cost of hamburger is high and things aren't getting cheaper, and people are concerned. People are concerned that prices may not stop going up. And what they'll want you to look at is how fast or slow prices are going up. So they'll say, oh, look, inflation, which in itself, the word inflation means prices are rising. But they'll say, oh, look, inflation is slowing. Okay, so prices are still rising. That's not good. We need deflation. We need prices to come down. But folks, it's not happening, right? We've got farms in trouble. Their costs are up. The cost of feed, the cost of grain, cost of fertilizer, everything's up for the farmers. They still have bills to pay. They still have land and household budgets and families to feed. And, it's not getting any easier is the bottom line, folks. Jobs aren't coming back like they said they would. In fact, this administration had to come out and threaten a steel plant not to shut down because the steel plant was going to stop production or slow down production. They had to come out and threaten it not to shut down. And I'll just read you an excerpt here. They had to come in, this administration, to stop U.S. Steel from idling operations in its Granite City, Illinois plant. And they had to exercise new powers tied to the company's recent takeover. The steelmaker had informed that nearly 800 workers in the plant would lose their jobs or be set aside for the time being, noting, however, that they would still be paid for the time being. But after the Commerce Secretary came out and said the U.S. administration wouldn't allow it, the steel plant reversed course on Friday, saying the facility would keep rolling slabs into sheet steel. Folks, that would have caused even a bigger shortage. But if the demand isn't there, why isn't the business allowed to make its own financial decisions? Right? So we have this intervention now where private business is now being told what to do because the economy is so bad. If the economy was good, folks, you wouldn't have them in there threatening businesses not to shut down. You wouldn't see stories like this. But the economy is bad, and they know it. Is it bad for the billionaires, the top 10%? Of course not. The billionaires don't care about recessions. Right? They may lose some money in the stock market, but a lot of them get out before the downturn. So you could look at the stock market as a gauge of the economy in that sense. But even if the bottom 90% or most of the working class people are barely scraping by, you could still see stock markets hit all-time highs. In fact, that's the situation right now. We're seeing high after high in many of the stock indices. All right, let's talk about ticket prices to events and concerts. We have this, folks. Ticketmaster internal emails reveal that Ticketmaster helped scalpers jack up prices. So what they were doing, they had an 8 ticket limit per person to prevent people from buying 1,000 tickets and then reselling them for profits. But it was discovered that Ticketmaster was actually helping people kind of skate around those rules. And even when they knew that people were, in some cases, companies were hiring a lot of different people to go out and buy the tickets, and they would all get 8 each. In some cases, they'd have 1,000 buyers and pay them a little bit, and they would really jack up the ticket prices. In fact, for one event, a Coldplay concert, read this excerpt here. They hired all these people to buy up a bunch of tickets. Apparently, Ticketmaster knew about it. That's allegedly. And they sold $81,000 worth of tickets for $170,000. So they raked in about $90,000 in profit just over one event on reselling these tickets, right? So it's an example, just one of many examples of why everything is so expensive, right? But again, if people are buying it from these scalpers, then it's not going to stop, folks. If you're willing to pay the price or borrow money to make the purchase, prices aren't going to come down. All right? So with that in mind, you can say that the way the economy goes and the cost of living and the cost of all these products and goods, it's up to the U.S. consumer. All you have to do, not just you, but en masse, people have to say no and go on a buyer's strike. But I don't think anyone's organized to have something that big take place to where it's actually going to make a noticeable effect. People have tried it. We've seen these days where they say, okay, it's no shop Friday. We're not going to buy gas on this day nationwide. Nobody listens. I drive by the gas stations on those days. Cars are still getting gas, right? A few people may listen, but it's not big enough to make a noticeable impact. And let's finish it up right here. Another headline with the car market, the used car market. Americans have never had this much car debt. Experts warn it could start a 2000-like recession. Let's see what they're talking about here. The soaring cost of cars and insurance pushing millions of Americans to the financial brink. Yes, that is happening. Drivers now owe $1.66 trillion, as with a T, a bigger burden than the federal student loan debt and credit cards, and it's up 20% since 2020. After years of high inflation, it's drained household budgets, leaving less money for everyday expenses. So there you have it, folks. We have these people out there saying the economic crash might be around the corner, but we've been hearing these predictions for years. Where does it end, folks? Does it get more expensive, and does it get even higher price levels from here? Or are we going to see something big happen? Maybe it starts with the banks. Maybe it happens somewhere else. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments, everybody. See you in the next video. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.